Wrestling fans, I'm Dan Marotti.
I'm Brian Pillman Jr.
He's certainly not Tony Atlas. Could you imagine Tony with that hairdo? We're going to be back with a brand new Wrestling Insiders Memories and Legends. Stand by. The summer is heating up on Wrestling Insiders Wednesday, July 29th. After WWE, NXT, and AEW go off the air, former WWE Intercontinental and Tag Team Champion Marty Jannetty debuts live on Wrestling Insiders with a cyber autograph signing where you can meet and greet with the future Hall of Famer from anywhere in the world. Then Sunday night, August 2nd, Wrestling Insiders is back at your house in Auburn, Maine, on the front porch of WWE Hall of Famer Mr. USA Tony Atlas, taping a special live program with a cyber autograph signing and meet and greet. Help keep professional wrestling legends working. Support these great programs and online autograph sessions you can watch in our archives again and again. Visit bostonwrestling.com and our social media platforms for complete information.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
All right, wrestling fans, welcome back. It's always really cool to me. We've had a variety of legends here in the studio that the Iron Sheik built so many years ago with his insanity. We've had superstars of the present, yesteryear, but when we have someone that you look at as a superstar of tomorrow, it's really cool. We had Velveteen Dream Patrick Larkin here before we went to NXT. We had Leo Rush here before he went to NXT. We had Rich Swann here before he went on to hold this very belt. And right now we have a man that I could easily see being a major part of many, many WrestleManias for years and even decades to come. Brian Pillman Jr. Brian, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Loved having you with us here in the Millennium Wrestling Federation in-ring Christmas weekend. The fans got a lot out of it, and hopefully we're going to continue to build and build on that relationship because I think you offer a hell of a lot right now to any professional wrestling platform you're involved with.
Yeah, I think I bring a lot to the table. I think I bring a very positive, creative energy to the table, to any show that I'm on, you know, backstage, in the ring, everything. I really prepare because for me, from day one, it's been a job, right? It's been a career since I started. You know, I've always kind of had enough momentum to make a living off this, and I owe it all to Lance Storm, my trainer, of course, who taught me. You know, he basically said, you know, you're in a unique situation where you're going to have to start treating this like a job from day one. You know, there's not going to really be any playtime or any fooling around. You know, obviously we're, as wrestlers, we enjoy going out and having a good time and, you know, brother. But at the end of the day, it's something that I take very seriously is my work.
Absolutely. So tell us, Brian, I mean, you grew up the son of one of the great professional wrestlers of his generation. At what point did professional wrestling even enter your mind as a kid? Was it something you watched and enjoyed? Was it something that you just kind of knew about but was in the background? What was wrestling like to a young Brian Pillman Jr.?
Well, you know, when I was super young, like, you know, 3 and 4 and stuff, I would see my dad on the TV and things, but my memory wasn't, you know, super developed at that time. But, you know, after my father passed, there was definitely a period of a high where they were doing those memorial shows. So I got to meet a lot of the boys, you know, a lot of the guys that are still wrestling today that I would have thought would be retired by now were on these shows, you know, guys like Jericho and the Hardy Boys and even Benoit, and those guys were working these shows. They were indie shows, you know, ran in the Cincinnati area, basically, you know, just as a memorial fundraiser. And Vince, you know, he cleared it and okayed it for all the boys to work these shows. And it was such fond memories I had of the business, you know, being a young kid and just being backstage and meeting all my heroes and stuff. But after those kind of took place and then the magic kind of faded from those memorial shows, you know, due to mismanagement or whatever. But there was a long period of where I wasn't watching it. You know, I wasn't interested in it. You know, I was bitter at it. You know, because you know, my father passed. You know, my mother didn't do me any favors. Didn't try to connect me with anybody in the business really. So you know, for more or less, I just wanted to go to college. I just wanted to get a good, safe job. You know, my family had been broken apart by by this tragedy, right? So to me, the most logical thing to do would be to go to college and get a normal, everyday job so that doesn't happen to my future offspring. But, after 20 years of being a normal guy, I decided that I wasn't very normal.
Well,
and,
join the club.
and I belonged in the circus called pro wrestling.
Yep.
So I quit my very lucrative job in database management and hung up my keyboard and grabbed a pair of boots. And I've been wrestling for 2 years now. I've been having matches for 2 years. As of December 31st, 2017 was my first publicized match. And before that, I trained at the Storm Wrestling Academy in Calgary, Alberta. And I trained at OVW for a short while.
With Al Snow?
Yeah. And
I
then
didn't know you were with
I did
Al.
some camps with, no, not Al. It was Rip Rogers.
Before Al took it over. Okay.
Yeah. And I've learned from all kinds of guys, from people like TJP, Michael Elgin. Many people have had a hand in my development and my training.
Well, you've had top-tier talent across the board trying to help get you to where you are right now. I mean, it's not like you've gone into a wrestling school run by someone that wrestled on independent shows that really can't teach you beyond wrestling moves, the professional wrestling industry.
Yeah.
So you've done really well for yourself as far as that goes. You said your mom kind of shielded you from the business. Do you think that was, now looking back on it, a good thing or something you wish she didn't do?
I think naturally that's sort of the parental route that people take. I'm not putting her over as a great parent, but I think she had a good thought in her head. I want to protect my son from this very physically dangerous and taxing business. And of course, she lost her husband to the business,
Sure.
So she had every right to be bitter and upset about that, and want her son, what's best for her son. Unfortunately, my personality just didn't mesh with whatever
Real life.
with real life, and I'm just I think I'm a natural performer and a natural garnerer of attention, and I think people, when I walk into a room, people pay attention. So it's one of those things that is a talent of mine. I've always brought people together. I've always enjoyed, putting parties, putting events together, and. To me, every weekend there should be something going on. There should be a big event. And,
Yep.
And I feel like any city I go to and I wrestle in, I really bring that energy, and I try to make it go throughout the whole weekend.
Well, when we had you for the very first time back on Christmas weekend for the Paul Bearer Holiday Headlocks Toy Drive event, you certainly brought the energy. A lot of the fans said it was the best match of the night. So, I mean, and that wasn't just a show that had one or two quality athletes. It was a pretty stacked card from top to bottom, and your match really, not only from the fans in attendance, but some of the Jerry Briscoes of the world, they really liked what you guys were doing in there.
Yeah, I've been on so many, as you said, stacked cards that at this point, I used to be so intimidated, like, oh, I'm sharing a locker room with this guy or this guy. But at this point, I've been in so many locker rooms with a lot of high-level athletes that I now consider myself part of the group,
Second nature to you
Yeah,
at this point. Yeah. I ask you this. Tremendous athlete. You had your own athletic background going through school. You said you went into the real world. What was it that you did for work?
I was a client technical analyst, basically analyzed databases and corrected errors in them for car dealership software.
Oh, really? Okay. What got you to the point where maybe you got interested in wrestling again? You said it was a long time after those Brian Pillman memorial shows. You just kind of dropped it.
I was just in my 20s, and I was just thinking about what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and I just looked at the numbers and how many years I would be slaving away at this desk job, and it just didn't appeal to me. That the lifestyle, I wasn't doing well with women. I wasn't socially active as much because I was sitting in my my desk all day. I'd go to the gym, but then I'd go home and get back on the computer. You know what I mean? It was just a very sedentary lifestyle. Not a lot of traveling, not a lot of time to do a lot of things. So I realized that not only being a professional wrestler, a performer, more than anything, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a businessman. I had the degree in business and stuff. So it's one of those things that I knew it was right for me. And I made the jump at, I guess, 23 to quit my job and move to Canada.
What a success it's been. Right now, folks, we're getting the cue from the back. We're going to take a brief timeout. We'll be back with more in this conversation with Brian Pillman Jr. Stand by.
They're ready to take their rightful place amongst the literary greats. Who you ask?
The New Day!
That's who. It's the Book of Booty. Shake it, love it, never be it. It's the feel-good story of the rise of the New Day. Loaded with games, trivia, coloring pages, and so much more. The Book of Booty. Shake it, love it, never be it. Available now, online, or wherever books are sold.
Wrestling fans, welcome back to a special episode of Wrestling Insiders, Memories and Legends. We're talking about a man that has already left some lasting memories in fans' mind. Will he go on to be a legend? That remains to be seen. We're going to see how his career progresses in the years and decades to come. Before the break, we spoke a little bit about the great tribute shows that were paid to your dad in the years after he passed on. I think Les Thatcher played a pretty big role in those. Les is a really great guy.
Yeah,
I love Les.
Yeah, Les is a very influential part of Ohio wrestling as a whole.
Mm-hmm. How did it make you feel, maybe looking back on it now, where you understand the industry a little bit better, at a time during the Monday Night Wars where there was a lot of bad blood between the three main promotions, WWF, WCW, and ECW, that all three of those companies allowed their talent to take time off from the events they were running to go and participate in those events? I remember the 1999 event. WWF was in Providence, Rhode Island specifically, and there was key talent missing from that event because it was the Brian Pillman tribute weekend.
Yeah, I mean, he was such an influential figure in the business. You know, it didn't really matter what acronym or what brand he was under. He was always, garnering that attention. He was always bringing a buzz to any company he worked for. That's why he was so valuable, or invaluable rather, to any company. And I think I think it really was just the respect of the boys and the respect of the guys that were working for all those different companies. You know, he made a lot of friends. He was a very genuine friend to a lot of people. For a lot of people, when they lost him, it really hurt them emotionally. And for many guys, it's a huge honor to go out there and to do combat in the honor of a fallen soldier. So I think it was a no-brainer for the boys. They all wanted to do it. It just came down to the paperwork and those bigger companies letting it slide and go and doing those shows, because those shows, I mean, they were great. They were packed. They did really well, and they generated some fundraising for my family, so I'm very blessed.
Just a lot of love that was shown in those events. It's too bad that they, as happens with a lot of different fundraising type events, wrestling or otherwise, as time goes on, sometimes there isn't as much interest. But I remember the first several years, it was top-notch pay-per-view quality talent, again, from three major companies all on the same night. It was unheard of for that to happen. And again, I think, that shows a lot of love.
Yeah.
Did you ever, now that you have WWE Network, YouTube, and things like that, did you ever go back and watch the crazy episodes the night it was announced that he had passed? Because it was a crazy, maybe an understatement as far as how it was presented.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing some of those clips and stuff, and but yeah, I mean, it's part of the show, as they would say. I always asked my mother about those segments, and she would always say, your dad would have said, the show must go on, and he was such an entertainer. He was so serious about, suspending that disbelief and keeping people guessing that it doesn't cross my mind for a second that he wouldn't want some kind of big event or some big segment to be made in his honor, or just, in lieu of the events that had happened. So, however they went about it, is how they went about it. It's entertainment at the end of the day, and it's what some people might consider, morally, low or high. It is what it is. So some people take a higher ground, and some people are like, oh, that's crazy or whatever. But in my eyes, I plan to give my life to this business as well. So if I'm going to give my life for a lifetime of entertainment and stuff, I would hope that in my passing there would be some sort of dramatic, final segment. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
Hey, it's your opinion. It comes from your heart. I look at it like this. Imagine if Brian had ever been with us through the entire Attitude Era into almost the new generation of WWE in 2001 when they kind of closed that book. Imagine just some of the matches that would be in the history book. A big-time feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Shawn Michaels. There was so many missed opportunities as a result of that from just one of the finest athletes of that generation. I don't know if fans that weren't watching back then realized just how great Brian Pillman was, from his first debut in the United States scene in WCW, singles matches with Jushin Thunder Liger that set the bar for what cruiserweight wrestling would become. He had a great tag team with the Z-Man, Tom Zink, then eventually going on to the kind of loose cannon persona. When people were watching Monday nights, they didn't know what the hell was going on. It was such a unique time in wrestling television as it is. You have, WCW, they're giving away the results on Monday Night Raw. Then you have Brian Pillman going crazy, showing up in crowds, holding off 900 numbers. And, the internet, before the internet really played a big part in wrestling, the newsletter type sources of the day talking about, he's under contract to WCW and he's on ECW television now. And being smart enough to work WCW into getting an early contract release. Yeah. I mean, just an ingenious individual. And then to be part of, even though it wasn't a very long run for the faction itself, the 5-member Hart Foundation in 1997 is still remembered as one of the best when it was Brian, Brett, Davey Boy Owen, and Jim Neidhart.
Yeah.
That match they had, the 10-man at the In Your House Canadian Stampede, I think was one of the best matches at WWF in that generation.
Absolutely.
When they worked with the Steve Austin team.
It's one of the highest rated matches of all time.
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
was without a doubt one of the best matches in company history.
And that's what happens when you have that mix of unpredictability and going out there with a bunch of guys that really know what they're doing and know how to put on a very dramatic scene without any overproduced sequences or segments of that nature. It's just a real all-out brawl and stuff like that, and that's what people, at the end of the day, that's what they want to see.
As you continue to evolve and expand your career, do you tend to look back at a lot of the stuff your dad did in wrestling, or are you more focused on kind of creating your own persona?
Yeah, I try not to watch too much of his stuff. I don't want to develop any weird habits, trying to act like him or anything. But I honestly, I like the new stuff. I like the Japanese wrestling. I like that style of wrestling, and so honestly, I've just been a fan of when I got into studying wrestling at 22 or whatever. That's when I started really watching stuff. Like 5 years ago. Bullet Club and all that, and the Ring of Honor factions and all that, and just a whole slew of indie wrestling, New Japan wrestling. Just trying to be hip and up to date with all the kids these days, and that led me down the road to kind of influence my own style in that way, but. So yeah, I would say I do have some of those old school tendencies, and I have with my training background with Lance Storm, and he took a very modern approach to wrestling as well. But I'd say I'm pretty well rounded in my style and what I take from past guys, like Shawn Michaels or Chris Jericho, like the wrestlers that I relate to, those kind of medium weight guys. I wouldn't say I'm small by today's standards, but
not at all.
If I wrestled back in that era, I would be, right?
Yeah, so 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, so I got to be basically able to do anything. I got to be versatile. I got to be able to pick guys up, and then I got to be able to jump on the big ones. So I'm pretty much ready for any kind of match at this point.
When you kind of had that bland professional existence before you decided to jump into wrestling, did you look at it like wrestling would be a great way to make money? Or was it something that you really genuinely enjoyed, but just kind of threw to the back burner for a while?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. For the longest time, I always thought you had to be like an ex-NFL or like a former pro athlete. I was so intimidated by the WWE that I did not think I qualified as an athlete personally. As a college athlete, I was pretty successful in Division III lacrosse, and I played high school football at a high level. But nothing, I was not being scouted by Division I schools. I wasn't any prospect to go on to the NFL or anything. So I thought, okay, this profession might be a little farther out of my reach. My father was actually an accomplished athlete before he was, allowed. Back then, you had to break into the wrestling business. I didn't realize that in today's world, it's a lot easier to get in and get started.
Right.
And I didn't realize the level of entertainment and drama that would play such a huge role in it. I thought I really had to be a pro athlete. So I think I was just intimidated by it for so long. And then once I discovered that it was a lot of it was strictly just who I am as a person, it made that decision much easier. But when it came to making money and stuff, I didn't think I'd make any money until I signed a big contract with somebody. I didn't think the indies would be as thriving as they are.
Yeah.
But
it was a great time for you to get involved.
After just 2 years on the end, at least after my first year, I started making enough money to move out on my own and have my own place and stuff. And now 2 years in, I'm pretty happy with how I've been doing on the indies financially. But it was never really about making money for me. It was more about doing something that I love and enjoy, and I can happily say that I love every second of my job now, and I look forward to every weekend, the travel, everything.
And that's really what life should be, you know what I mean? We're only here for a short period of time. We should be enjoying it. I mean, there have been times I've been in different jobs that haven't been wrestling related, and this is the juice that keeps flowing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for you, it's the same thing, and look at how well it's gone in just 2 short years. That's why when you really look at big picture, look where you could be going a year, 2 years, 2 decades from now. I mean, you're still a relatively young guy.
Yeah.
And you guys now are going longer and longer and longer. So, I mean, it could really be quite the future for you, not only in the sport itself, but, you know, how that reflects your real life, whether it be financially or otherwise. How long were you hitting the ring before you wound up involved with MLW? They have kind of an interesting platform right now.
Yeah, MLW, I would say, was very wise to, I guess, sort of cherry pick me off the scene while I was still young and green and not, you know, not any knock on them. That was very smart because, you know, had they tried a little bit later in my career, I would have been a little bit more reluctant to sign with them. But I think because they got me early, because they started developing me and teaching me production and timing and all these things, putting me in the ring with high-level athletes like Low Key and just extremely good work rate guys, I just got so much better. You know, it was almost like developmental on steroids, you know, where I'm not like, it's not like I'm in some training school 5 days a week. I'm doing live TV, like right there, you know, throw them into the fire, you know. But it also helped that when they first contacted me, I was actually injured.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
so I got to do my first TV taping just as like a manager to kind of feel things
really?
out,
Okay.
you know. So I was on TV with the Hart Foundation, Teddy Hart and Davey Boy Smith Jr., who are just exceptional high-level performers. So I was able to sit back and kind of watch. And honestly, they did a great job of booking me in that way and protecting me to the point where I finally, you know, really started to figure out what I was doing. And then I got fed the higher level, the singles matches, the important matches that are going to shape me into like a title contender, you know, a contender for a middleweight or even a heavyweight championship. And I'm very blessed to say that I made the right decision when I signed with that company. They've done nothing but take good care of me.
Good,
So.
good. Have you had a match there yet that you feel is your best?
Oh yeah, well, I will say I started showing some signs of excellence with my Austin Aries match, and then I think recently people are calling my match with TJP my most complete work. So I guess that's a good compliment.
Do you have a personal favorite?
Yeah, I really think I did everything I set out to do in my match with TJP.
Did you?
I really think I showcased who I am as far as a wrestler. There were some things I may have left out of that match that I could have gotten over, but just to be in there with somebody that flows so well and works so well and works to the same style. You know, some guys you don't really mesh with, even though they're considered these, you know, prestigious, great technical wrestlers or whatever. Sometimes you just don't mesh well with them, or you don't mesh well with their speed. But you know, agile guy like TJP, smooth guy, fun to wrestle. We had a great match. I can't say anything more about it. Low Key was more of a fight for my life. You know, Low Key, I really.
Low Key is quite an individual. We had him right down at that hall.
Yeah, I think I earned some amount of respect from him and the whole locker room after the match with Low Key. So Low Key was kind of like, you know, more of a fight. You know, it wasn't this back and forth fun wrestling. It was, we went out there with nothing going on in our heads. You know, the only goal was to fight and to see who gets knocked out first. So unfortunately, I got knocked out in that match, but I think I earned the respect with that defeat, and went on to defeat TJP in the Opera Cup, and stay tuned to find out what happens with the rest of the Opera Cup.
He is an intense human being.
Yeah.
We had some fun with him at the restaurant we were at last night up at Kowloon. He introduced me to the chicken teriyaki, which I'm grateful to him for.
Wow.
Now, he is one hell of an athlete, though. I think one of the more underrated wrestlers of the generation.
Oh, yeah,
where
absolutely. Yeah.
He had a very brief stint in WWE. Imagine if he stayed a couple of more years where the younger guy, maybe the smaller guys were kind of pushed stronger. It could have turned out very different for him, but he's still very active in the industry now, which I think is good for the industry. As time goes on, you have that crystal ball. Do you have any places you'd like to go? I know Japan, you would hope to have gone over there to the big Tokyo Dome shows this year. Where would you like to see the life and times of Brian Pillman Jr. go?
What do you mean, just for vacation or for
No,
business,
for
work?
your career, for work.
Okay,
Yeah.
he said the life and time. Well, no, I think it's just everything I've done up to this point has been purely organic, and I've accepted the opportunities that have come my way. Very rarely have I turned down, even if it's a small indie show. You know, if I'm available, it's pretty much been first come, first serve. But now we're getting into that realm that people are really, really starting to want to work with me, and there's contracts in the way and things like that with Major League Wrestling, and I'm very happy to be there and to continue finishing out my work there. But I think at the end of that tenure, it's going to be starting to make a big decision on my future. And I think, I know New Japan is going to be doing some shows in the United States, so that might be a good avenue there. But at the same time, I've made some friends, and I've really learned to appreciate the WWE perhaps opening its doors for me as well. So there's that, and I've always had a great connection with Cody as well. Cody comes from a similar story, similar background. He was the boss's kid for so long, and being the son of Pillman Jr. is kind of similar shoes. You got people in your ear all the time trying to give you advice. Oh, your dad would have done this, your dad this, but my father's no longer here anymore. His father's no longer here anymore. So we're on these similar journeys of trying to find ourselves, trying to make our fathers proud, and I think I'd be a great fit for AEW as well. So unfortunately, I love all these companies, and I love wrestling, and I wouldn't mind a run at Ring of Honor either. But it's one of those things where we'll see what happens. I think I got to look at every individual opportunity and weigh the pros and cons and see what works best for the mullet. We can't be cutting this hair off.
No,
so
can't do that. That's
any
the
of those
money, baby.
companies are trying to cut my hair, I can't sign with them.
It must be a really cool feeling as we're getting ready to begin a whole new decade, that when that time comes next year, when you are a free agent, almost like in professional sports, you're going to probably be one of the most highly coveted guys in the industry. And I can't see what promotion would not want you to be a part of it, whether it's Major League Wrestling trying to re-sign you, WWE trying to bring you in, AEW, Ring of Honor, even Impact Wrestling has really made leaps and bounds over the past couple of years too. Maybe not attendance-wise, but they're really increasing the quality of the shows. And there's a lot of those big 6- and 7-figure contracts going around, so that's going to be a pretty cool feeling to sit back.
Forgive me for omitting Impact.
That's
just
okay.
So many awesome places to work these days. That's why I never would ever, publicly, shame any company or talk bad about anybody, because all these people are doing nothing but they're paying our bills. They're giving us places to work, they're giving us opportunities, and there's a lot of competition right now. There's a lot of back office politics, and who are we going to keep, who is going to leave, and who we're going to try to get on our show, and I think the best companies will make the best decisions. I know Major League Wrestling has some very huge stuff happening in 2020.
Good.
I'm not too sure on the details of it, but I know several of my colleagues have re-signed with MLW. So that's not outside the realm of possibility. I'd like to at least see what happens once it's up and consider all contracts equally,
It's like Mookie Betts with the Red Sox. He's receiving so much heat right now in Boston because he hasn't signed a long-term deal with Boston, but he feels at the end of his contract this season, he has the right to explore what his value is on an open market, along with 30 Major League Baseball teams. With
absolutely.
you have at least 5 major players that could give you a very healthy payday and a very healthy opportunity to continue to grow and expand your career.
Yeah, and I owe a lot to MLW for building that confidence within me, because without them, I might be in a similar predicament of exploring contract options, but maybe not have had that experience on TV, that experience with the production, the confidence in knowing that I can do my job at the highest level, right? So I owe a lot to them,
Fans had asked, when we let it be known that you were going to be joining us in studio, how did you wind up working the AEW pay-per-view? I think it was the Double or Nothing one back in Las Vegas in the Battle Royal?
Yeah. I just, like I said, I was always pretty close with Cody. My first indie show where I really set up and broke down the ring and stuff was in Calgary, Alberta. And it was while we were training at the Lance Storm Academy. Lance didn't put on his own shows, but he would send the students to go to the local indies, to help out and stuff. And there was a very, very good indie there called the Prairie Wrestling Alliance, PWA. Very good guy named Kurt, runs a very tight, clean show. And he brought in Cody and Brandy, while they were making waves with the Bullet Club and stuff. he brought them in to do a show and wrestle their top guy, Michael Richard Blaze. And, he just sat down on the floor with me in the locker room. I introduced him. I told him who I was, and I was like, hey, man, I don't know nothing. I need the rundown. What do I expect from being in these shoes? He was in similar shoes, and, he gave me some great advice that's really stuck with me my whole career. And so every chance I get to see him, I just try to, touch base with him and stuff. And I could probably do a better job of that and being in their ear. But like I said, I'm just really happy with what MLW's given me. I'm waiting to ride out my opportunity with them before I start, I'm not trying to jump ship, right? I don't want any company to think I'd ever be like on my way out, what I mean? Like I ride it out till my contract, is done. I'm an employee there,
right.
I'm contracted and stuff. So, but no, I think I ran into him again at a convention at the big event in New York, and he was just like, hey, keep your calendar open for, I guess it was May 23rd.
I think it was Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, May 23rd through 26th, the Casino Battle Royale in Las Vegas, and there it was.
There you go.
Yeah, I went there, and I debuted for All Elite Wrestling. Well, I guess I didn't debut for their TV show, but I debuted on their very first pay-per-view.
Yeah, under that
I was
name.
actually the first televised entrance, I believe, on the pay-per-view.
It's a little history right there down the road.
So I think what had happened was they had a few of the heels were already in the ring, and then when the live stream hit, I was the first entrance that went through on the pay-per-view.
Cool.
Yeah, and then did a couple little things in that battle royal, got eliminated, but you know what? I got that mullet in front of 13,000 people went live, and the freaking thousands, hundreds of thousands that watched at home. So I think people have a good idea of where this mullet is going to end up, but who knows?
Big places, I think, is going to be the answer, no matter where the actual
Big
destination
arenas,
is.
yeah.
Big arenas,
Yeah.
bigger arenas. If you could, maybe one would be kind of hard to narrow down, but there are maybe 2, 3, 4 guys you can think in your head, no matter what the promotion, man, I've never worked with them. I'd really love to work with them, whether it be for the quality of the match, someone you could really learn from, you think, in the ring?
Yeah, I've always had great respect and admiration for Daniel Bryan and his ability in the ring.
Yeah,
and,
I could see that being good.
I've recently had a short moment. I chatted with him at the gym. He was in my town. They had a house show. I met him at the gym, and we really hit it off well. Talking about yoga and things like that, keeping our bodies healthy and stuff. And he's just such a smart person that he takes a very cerebral approach to pro wrestling, and he really pays all the respects to every aspect of it. Whether it's the realism, this, that, or the other. You got clips of people online doing spots and stuff, and and everybody has their different style of wrestling, but and I respect it all. But Daniel Bryan is someone that not only respects it all, but he takes every aspect of it and puts it into his work. He's a complete package worker. A guy like that, a guy that I was a huge fan of when I first started looking into the business was Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
Someone I've always admired his style. And his dramatics and his explosiveness on the mat. Jericho was a huge mentor of mine, who really, it was Jericho's reason I got booked at the Casino Royale, because I had reached out to him just to double check, because I didn't know if Cody had forgotten that he told me to clear my schedule, but Jericho doubled down and made sure that I was part of that. So he's a guy that really uplifts the younger guys. Jericho's always been about helping younger guys get started and just kind of, I don't know, I think he just enjoys being around that youth and being around that energy, because he's a youthful guy himself. He has a lot of energy to give.
He may be someone that's well-schooled in the industry, but he's a very young individual, much younger than me.
Yeah. So he's, and he's got a 24/7 schedule. He's doing bands, rock shows and stuff with Fozzy, and touring around the world being a wrestler at his age. I mean, he's a true role model. For sure.
Certainly one of the most creative people I think the industry has ever seen.
Yeah.
Jericho's a really, really creative guy. I'd love to see any of those matches happen. I know the fans certainly would too. Before we go, a lot of times the fans will wonder. They're at home. They see, look at this, whether it's you, many others, the outstanding athlete in tremendous physical condition. We have so much travel now where you're on the road every week pretty much, sometimes multiple shots per weekend with different promotions. You do a lot of traveling. How do you keep up the physique? Is it a training regimen? Is it diet? I know you mentioned yoga a few minutes ago in your conversation with Daniel Bryan. What keeps Brian Pillman Jr. flying, I guess?
honestly, like, just because I am blessed to say wrestling is my full-time job, I have a lot of time during the week when I'm not traveling to stay in shape and to eat right. But it is a challenge on the weekends, even if whether you're driving or you're flying, you're limited to the options within the airport or at the gas station or whatnot. So for me, it's all a part of, it's a part of the job. A lot of people get into wrestling. They think it's going to be this fun and glorious ride, but there's a lot of prices that you pay. There's a lot of nights that you'd rather starve than be fat. You don't want to show up to the show bloated, so you might not eat all day just to kind of, save that extra ab that you might get out. You're trying to maximize your appearance at all times. I've spent hundreds of dollars on my hair, hundreds of dollars on spray tans, and it doesn't end. It's just, this is how it is. These are your business expenses. This is how you make a living in wrestling. You put money into it in hard work and dedication to get something out of it, right? I can't show up to TV at MLW without a good tan. I can't show up in the worst shape of my life. Now, through some injuries and stuff, I'm not in the best shape that I would have been had I been 100% healthy. But now that I've regenerated and recovered these things, I think 2020 is a better time than ever to explore my physique again and rebuild.
All right, a couple questions before we go, Brian. What's the best experience you've had in professional wrestling thus far?
Oh, man, I really loved going to Mexico, man. That was
Really?
awesome.
Mexico,
I wrestled in Tijuana, me and Davey Boy Jr., a couple juniors.
What promotion?
A couple young stallions. We wrestled. It was for MLW and the Crash.
Oh, okay. With Crash, they were tied in. That's right.
Oh, it was just a blast of a match and just that epic big arena feel. You got 3,000 plus Mexican fans. They're screaming at you like it's the NBA Finals, and it really makes you feel like a star when you go to a country like that where lucha is so highly regarded, so highly respected, and the athletes themselves are incredible. They've trained from such a young age. They hit hard when they need to, and then they flow when they need to flow. They really know how to go. And I know Davey Boy said that was one of his favorite matches of mine, and it's definitely or one of his favorite tag matches of ours, and it was definitely one of my favorite matches of all time. I always show people clips from it. So,
cool. Now on the flip side, 2+ years in now, have you had a bad experience, whether it be wrestling-wise, whether it be travel-wise, something that stands out as if you were going to write the book that you just threw your hands up and you had enough?
It's hard to say, man. I've never really. I guess the worst experience was when I separated my shoulder. That was pretty rough. When I tore my knee, I was at training, so I can't say that was like on the road or anything. But I really, gosh, I was in so much pain when I separated my shoulder in North Carolina. I remember just laying in the hotel bed, like, oh God, this better all be worth it one day. I don't think I got down to the point where I wanted to quit. I think it was more like, this is so bad that it better be worth it, and it's gonna be, and I think it will be.
Hey, look at where you're going.
And I'd been through so much worse, in my life growing up, that I don't think that anything that wrestling can throw at me would really faze me. Like I tell people all the time, I've really got nothing to lose. I came from a broken family. I came from poverty and stuff, and I grew up, wearing the same clothes to school every day and not having a lot of money. So for me, I've already succeeded. I've already succeeded in wrestling. Just to say that I can even pay what little bills I have, just as a single guy. I'm not raising a family or nothing on wrestling, but that's one of those things that I want to do one day. I aspire to create an empire, so to speak, of a family that can be proud and be productive, and maybe my sons would like to get into wrestling. I know some people don't want their kids getting into it, but if my genetics tell me anything, it's going to run in the family. The DNA twists, they say wrestling in them. So,
well, I think it's a much healthier industry overall right now, both from the
and that
financially,
too, right?
and far as how the talent is taken care of.
Yeah.
A lot of the substance issues aren't anywhere near as bad as they used to be. It's a much healthier place.
I've never been anywhere near a needle. Yeah, so. It's one of those nice things that you can really look at. Okay, this is starting to become quite a prestigious art form. Let's really pay the respects to it, and get trained properly. Maybe start a school one day down the road. Yeah,
I would love to do that myself, even though I couldn't show anyone how to do a move. But we've had some interesting experiences. What do you got there? A clip?
What are these for?
Yeah, I have no idea. They were just
cable cuffs.
Well, you got a new gimmick if you want to take one home with you. Your dad has a tremendous legacy. WWE released a multi-disc DVD set of him. There was a great independent book written about him that I think fans would love if they were even
Liam O'Rourke's Crazy Like a Fox.
Even if they weren't a Brian Pillman fan, it's such a great, unique story. I think I flipped through the book going down to North Carolina in a day and a half. I read it. I love the book. As time goes on with you, what would you like to have as a lasting memory to wrestling fans when it's all said and done? Hopefully many, many decades from now as you sit back on a beautiful mansion down in Florida reflecting on your career.
You know, I've thought about this a lot, and I really loved Paige's story, you know, fighting with my family, and I watched that movie a couple times, and it really got it, you know, really got underneath my skin. It really brought out those emotions in me. You know, I wish I had grown up, you know, with a family like that to push me and to train me into wrestling. Unfortunately, I did not. It took me to find it on my own, you know, later on in my 20s.
You didn't have much help.
To explore it. But no, I always thought that my father's life made for a great movie, made for a great, you know, a great story. The book was awesome. But no, I thought maybe down the road there'd be some sort of movie, maybe a sequel, you know, to Fighting with My Family. It could you know, be chronological, talk about my father's career and then eventually my career and how I budded and became the star that I will become in the future, and hopefully that my career pans out in a way that would make for a good film. Maybe they call it Fighting Without My Family, right? Because I didn't have a family growing up, so maybe throw a little spin on it.
You know, I don't think the fans, and Vicky Guerrero and I spoke about this not too long ago when she was in that seat. The fans, they may read the stories online about what certain talents go through when they're on the road. They like to get the juice and the stories and whatnot. But I don't think they truly grasp the impact that the business as a whole has on these families, whether it's wives at home, kids at home, and not just in the present when these guys are on television and on the road, but it can have long-lasting impacts on these wives and kids, you know, for years and years and years to come. It's not always a great story, but I think it's very interesting, and I think with Vicky Guerrero and her podcast, she's trying to bring out more of a family experience and what it's like for inside the home as opposed to just what the guys go through on the road. And I think that's spot on. I think Ryan's life and now your life, where you're going right now, I think it could make for a great story somewhere down the road. I'm sure Hollywood could kind of jazz it up a little bit, but that's Hollywood, I guess, right?
Yeah. No, and like I said, I think it would make a good story, right? But I'm still writing my story. Right?
It's just beginning. You're in chapter one for your story.
My biggest focus is my wrestling career and getting as well versed and as good of a technician at this craft as I can, and then hopefully the movies come down the road.
All right, wrestling fans, this has been a tremendous conversation. I've had such a great respect for you from a distance. I got such a great vibe when we began to interact. I think we wound up booking you and Mark Henry the same day when AEW was in Boston at a TV taping, and that cell phone was on fire that day. Personality-wise, you fit in with everything that's going on in professional wrestling right now. And just as someone that's been around a long time, I just see nothing but great successes for you. I hope we can continue to have you here in the MWF for as long as a professional wrestling contract would allow you to come to Boston. We had a really great time with you at the live event, and it's been great getting to know you here on set.
All right, thank you for having me. This is quite the set, quite a prestigious little venue you got here, little studio. So I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy to share my story with you and my little insight into the business. So.
Well, I tell you this, maybe 10, 15 years from now, we have these WrestleMania plaques that have the pieces of the ring and the ropes on them. I think maybe you just might see a Brian Pillman Jr. main event plaque put out that you have to sign.
Well,
we'll add it to the collection.
That looks like it's going to be a possibility. So.
There you go. I love the confidence, too. All right, wrestling fans, for Brian Pillman Jr., I'm Dan Marotti. Don't forget, every Monday night, 7 o'clock, a brand new MWF Ultra. Every Tuesday at 11, I'm back with that crazy man himself, Tony Atlas again. You and yours, be well.